Hey folks, I wanted to give you a brief introduction to some of the changes that are coming to our rope rescue cache and operations. These changes are going to bring us up to the industry standard, and they're going to make our operations simpler, safer, and just plain easier to operate. The Division of Training has hands-on training scheduled for August. You'll get lots of chances to play with this equipment. But before we got there, I wanted to introduce you to the equipment and the operations so that you can come with your questions. Before we talk about operations, let's talk about the equipment. So the first thing you'll notice that's different is we're switching to 11 millimeter rope. The rope that you currently have is 12.5 millimeters or ½ inch. This 11 millimeter rope still exceeds the NFPA standards that we need to meet, but it's got a stretch factor that makes our operation a little bit safer. You won't notice much of a difference other than we can pack more rope into the same amount of space. The knots are a little bit easier to tie, and when you're hanging on it, it looks a little bit thinner, but it still exceeds our safety rating. Next, we're introducing swivel beaners. So swivel beaners are just two carabiners that are mounted end to end with a swivel in the middle. This allows you to make the connection on one side while the equipment that you have attached can freely rotate on the other. Just like all new carabiners that we're ordering, these are auto-locking carabiners, so you push down and twist to open it, and then when you close it, it locks automatically. We've gone away from those twist lock carabiners. This takes a little bit of practice to get used to. Once you have the hang of it, it's pretty simple, and it means that we're not left with unlocked carabiners. Next, we have our Maestro. So the Maestro is built on a couple of different generations of equipment, starting with the 540 and then the MPD, and there's a couple different devices on the market today that do the same thing, and this is one of them. What this is it's basically our friction device and our progress capture pulley built into one. So this replaces the brake rack bar, one of the pulleys, and the tandem press-X. I want to briefly talk to you about the parts of this device. This Maestro is specifically designed for the size rope that we have. When I look at the front, there's a little diagram here that tells me what side the load or the rescuer goes on and what side my brake hand or my slack goes on. When I flip this device over, this is my brake handle. You'll see it says lock right here, and that corresponds to this white arrow, so I know the device is locked. I also know it's locked because the handle's flush with the device here. When I want to lower, all I do is open that brake handle and we move into descent mode. The further I move that brake handle, the faster we go. When I want to stop, I just let go of that handle and the device is locked again. I have a primary friction tooth here and a secondary friction tooth here. We don't often need this much friction, but it's good to know that it's there. I have an eye down here for capturing a change of direction pulley if we start building advanced mechanical advantages. And I have my main eye here that passes both through the gold faceplate and the remainder of the device. When I open this plate up, you'll see we have the same diagram here with my load or my rescuer on this side and my brake hand or my slack on this side. I have a progress capture pulley here that freely spins in one direction, but it locks up in the other direction unless I open that brake handle. Loading this device is very simple. I just take the rope that goes down to my rescuer, I pass it through the rescuer, the load side, around the top of the pulley, capture that cam, and out past that first friction tooth. When I close this device, I'll take my swivel beaner and lock it through. Now that faceplate is locked in there, we can't accidentally pass the rope out of the device. I know it's rigged correctly if the side going to my rescuer doesn't freely lower, but my slack hand will freely raise. I take my swivel beaner and clip it into the rest of my system. This is where that swivel beaner becomes helpful. When my rescue team comes up and wants to lower, they want easy access to that brake handle. All they have to do is rotate that device and the brake handle is freely accessible. You'll get lots of chances to play with this, but I wanted to show you what this equipment looks like and the changes that we have. So this Maestro replaces our brake rack bar, our mariner's hitch, our change of direction pulley, and our tandem press-X. So our future pre-rigged setup will look a lot simpler than the current device that we have. That's it for the equipment, and let's talk briefly about the operational changes you're going to see.
Traditionally, we've used a main line and a belay or safety line. The concept was that the main line was strong enough to hold the load, and the belay line was there to catch it in case something went wrong. This worked, but needed additional steps. The belay line was made out of the same static rope that the main line was. And static rope is not good for catching loads that are already falling. It can be catastrophic for both the rope and the person on the end of it. So we put in tandem pressics that were designed to slip to catch some of the movement, and we taught rescuers to be really careful about how much slack they allowed into the safety line. And we were sticklers for how they held the tandem pressics. Finally, we were, rightfully so, ultra cautious about what kind of sharp edges this rope ran over. And here's why. Here's a traditional main line and safety setup. The main line is going to free fall about 1.5 feet before catching. The safety or belay line has a little less than an additional foot of slack in it, which would be about the amount that we'd expect for someone accurately managing a belay line. To illustrate the point, the edge is, obviously, fairly sharp. When the main line caught the load, the force was enough to sever the rope on the sharp edge. The load is now hanging solely on the damaged safety line. If we pad that edge, but increase the distance that the load falls from about 1.5 feet to just a little over 2 feet, keeping the same amount of additional slack in the safety line, the results are suboptimal. So how can we do better? Well, certainly don't run your rescue systems over a sharpened knife edge, but I think we would agree that there's got to be a better answer than that. And there is. We simply replace the safety line with another line that mirrors the main line. This has a lot of names: mirrored systems, twin, two, or dual tension systems, and you'll see a lot of research and evidence backing up this method out there. In fact, anyone who's taken a ropes class in the last 5 to 10 years has likely either been introduced to this method or has trained exclusively with it. Simply said, rather than placing the load entirely on one rope with an untensioned backup line, you just share the load equally between the two lines. This system works best when a single bomb-proof anchor is used, which we'll demonstrate. In the unlikely event that you cannot find or build a bomb-proof anchor for your system, you can easily split this system between two separate anchors. Before you watch us lower and raise a dual tension system, let's go back and watch that last catastrophic test. This time, we'll keep all the parameters the same, and the load will fall the same distance, except that instead of an untensioned backup line or safety line, we instead have two lines with each sharing half the load. Because the stress of the falling load was shared between two lines, the load held, even if on damaged ropes. Here's what a dual tension system using maestros looks like in practice on both a lower and then a raise. Main line ready?
Ready.
Rescue ready? Down on main. Stop. Rig to raise.
Good. Set up.
Main line ready?
Ready.
Rescue ready?
Ready.
Up on main.
Up.
Stop.